Young Pharaoh says Lucifer and Eve saves humanity. Yeah, what's going on, party people? The place to be. I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Glad everybody's here on this Wednesday evening. Of course, we got to say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got Adrian Jones. We got Bodega Lady D. New. We got Apologist in Detroit. We have Stacy Nelson. We have Carly Waller. Listen, man, of course, tell a friend to tell a friend that's them again. Please make sure you share the link. And if you're so inclined, you can support the ministry in PayPal, or you can do it on a much more monthly consistent basis on Patreon. Thank you so much for those who have given in the past and who are thinking about giving in the future. And we also take prayers. Those are very good as well. You know what I mean? So, and of course, I am joined again with one half of the EPMD of Urban Apologetics, Mr. Tru-ID himself, Adam Coleman. What's going on, sir?
Hey man, I'm loving life right now, brother. What's happening with you?
Oh man, it's a good time to be alive. Good time.
Yeah,
to be alive,
man. Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying?
The UA is popping right now. You know?
Oh man, this is just the beginning, bro. This is just the beginning, man. I mean, I know some of the folks in the chat was just on that live stream with Eric Mason and Pastor Jerome Gay, man. They, hyping up the book that's coming out, man. It's a lovely time to be a part of the Urban Apologetics community, bro.
And why is it so lovely for you, Adam? Let's just do a shameless plug. Why is it so lovely for you?
Oh man, hey, I don't know how much time you want to spend on that, man. Because I can go on for a while, bro. But a little bit, okay. Well, I mean, I was blessed to contribute a chapter to the Urban Apologetics book that's coming out, Urban Apologetics, Restoring Black Dignity with the Gospel. I did a chapter on Black atheism, and it's just a blessing, bro. It's just a blessing, man. I think about we talked about it, man. I'm just a young kid from well, maybe not so much young anymore, but young kid from Alexandria, Virginia, man. You know what I'm saying? 2 up, 2 down. You know what I mean? A lot of people, they saw me a couple of weeks ago. I was just telling a little bit of my story. I won't go into it deep now, but it's crazy, man. When I was in 6th grade, man, I had a teacher. I failed like a standardized test, which was like a big deal at the time, like the Iowa test. And I failed it. And I had a teacher actually had me stand up in class and in front of everybody. She told me I would never go to college. I'm saying, like, I'm just basically done. I mean, it was like, this like really happened, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I guess, she's an older Black lady. I guess she, thought it was tough love or something like that, man. But that thing like really like got to me, man. It was crazy because I always said that one day I was going to go to college, get a crazy dope job, buy me a Porsche, and go back and tell Miss Patterson, blam, like, this is what you said, but look at me now,
like
you know what I mean? Like, how you like me now, And I ain't get a Porsche, but I mean, this right here, man, for God to, just use me in this capacity, man, it's just even just on a personal level, man. It's just it's a real blessing, man.
A Porsche, bro.
Yeah, well, hey, right.
For real.
Yeah,
and the fact
man.
that hot off the press from Dr. Mason saying that this book might be finding itself in syllabuses in seminaries in the very
man,
future.
It's crazy, bro. That's wild, man. Because I mean, I know that they were working on doing that. I wasn't sure. I didn't know that it already was kind of on the table, man. I mean, apparently some seminaries have reached out and they're going to include the Urban Apologetics book on in their curriculums. Now, this is amazing because I mean, one of the main issues that anybody who's a part of our community knows that one of the biggest issues that we face is the miseducation of not just African Americans, but the body of Christ in general, in regard to the African presence in the Bible, the impact of Africans, in church history, so on and so forth. And these are all things that we're addressing in the book. So, this book is really going to be filling the gap that, we all, are familiar with. I'm saying we understand that, you know what I mean? So, I mean, just on so many levels, man, it's just a blessing, bro. It's a blessing.
Absolutely. I was asking Adam behind the scenes, how's it feel knowing that in the future, when people are writing their dissertations, they'll probably be citing Adam Coleman? You know, so
right. It's crazy. it's crazy, yo. That's crazy, man.
Not too bad for a 6th grade problematic student, right?
Right,
so.
right. I mean, for real. I mean, seriously, man. It's funny. I had another teacher, and this probably was 10th grade. And looking back on it, I didn't understand at the time, but I'm pretty sure she was a Christian. And I never forget, man. She held me back after class one day, and to be honest, I was a lazy student. I knew it. I mean, yeah, it wasn't like she wasn't like being controversial, but I remember she held me back after class. She was like, and she just told me, she said, Adam, you're an A student, but you choose to do C work. Like there's no reason why you shouldn't be, putting in A work, but you choose to be mediocre. Like she told me that, and then that was it. That was the end of the conversation. It wasn't like an encouraging word after. It was like, all right, peace, kind of a thing, But I mean, she meant it in the right way. I mean, she's like, she was trying to, push me to do better. And so it is crazy, man, to be somebody who, kind of was behind the 8 ball, I guess, to some extent, to my own doing, to be able to contribute to something like this, man. It's mind blowing, bro. It's mind blowing, man.
Actually, can you keep talking to people just for a moment? I gotta check something real quick. All right.
Yeah. Well, actually, since I got the mic, I mean, shoot, I can say anything while he's out here. I'm gonna take my liberties here, but nah, man, seriously, one of the things that BK was talking about, before we even hopped on, is just how with this urban apologetics book, this isn't just like a select group of people who decide to get together and write something. Like this book is really an expression of the urban apologetics community, man. Like this is really all of us, the energy that we bring when we're fellowshipping and encouraging one another, sharpening one another, educating one another, everybody, this is an expression of all of us, man. Like, I mean, I always try to give respect to, the folks who was doing it before me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the first, urban apologists to come along. I mean, there was guys that when I hopped into it, I realized it was already in the game and inspired me to do it. Shout out to Tremaine Terrell. He comes to mind. I always shout him out because he's one of the first people I saw in these, chat rooms, all that kind of stuff, getting busy for the gospel. So, I mean, this is all of us, man. Like this is a collective effort, you know what I mean? And in order to get it out there, man, like, as strong as our community is, there's loads of people out there. I mean, there's more people far more people than we have in the community. There are far more people out there, in internet world who have never heard of the kinds of things that we take for granted, quite frankly, the kind of information that we're privy to. And so we really need as a community to be a bullhorn for the book, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, definitely, for anybody who may not be aware, there's a launch team that you can sign up for that. And, push the book out and I mean, just really get it out there. Cause I mean, let's keep it real, bro. Like, I mean, I think I see you back, but let's keep it real, man. Like there's millions of people out there. I'm saying I can hop on, we talk about this all the time, but I mean, I can hop on YouTube right now and, there's certain channels out there that are just pushing nonsense, one of which we're about to get into in a second, but, Cat's got 500,000 subscribers and all this kind of stuff, man. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. And as a community, we can't get complacent. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm really pushing this book here as an evangelism tool, so yeah, man, we're all in this together, yo. Seriously, we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, tell a friend to share the link because we're about to get into some urban apologetics, right? So yeah, we defend the faith against, claims that are thrown against the gospel of Jesus from various places. And one of the individuals that's well known for doing such a thing is Young Pharaoh. So well known that he almost got a chance to speak at CPAC not too long ago. So, he has a lot of influence. He has the ears of at least 500,000 people on his channel alone. So we have to address these things because as in the King James says, we are to cast down imaginations. And Young Pharaoh has a very vivid imagination. So we have to deal with it. And today's topic is a video that he entitled himself. This is not even my title. This is his title. I just put a question mark on it. And it's about Lucifer and Eve saved humanity. All right. So we're going to get into that. I guess I'll play it. I don't know if you had it queued up already, Adam. Not right? No? Okay, cool. No problem.
Oops, my bad.
This guy, he writes a chapter in a book. Don't know how to act now. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I gotta know my place. But I'm on BK channel. I play the video. That's my job. You know?
All right, so here we go. It's a short video. It's 11 minutes. It's gonna feel like a lifetime though, but you know, it's gonna be okay. We'll survive. Make sure everybody sees that. All right, cool.
We pop them bottles like ceremony. For that rhythm, my cup is a ritual. Yeah, I wake up and go get it, it's ritual. Yeah, keep a queen on my arm, it's habitual. Ritual. Make your soul and your flesh like a ritual. Yeah, think I don't, but I got it in here. Way that wine make them all disappear. Watch them hop on my dick like they finna do. Keep my name in their mouth, it's habitual. Like I wines in this bitch, make it magical. Pour that wine in my cup, it's a ritual. Peace, family. This video right here is about how Lucifer and Eve saved humanity from God. And so before anybody come on here acting crazy or ridiculous, let me give my disclaimer. Religion is allegorical. Religion is fictional, and the characters are allegorical, okay? And symbolic to other, people, places, and things, specifically things in contrast with astrology.
So we gotta stop right there. We got.
We are switching roles. Normally, I'm the one that's going to hop on the crowd. I was trying to be reserved, man, but okay.
We got to stop right there. Adam, what's the issue with that right there? With that claim?
I tell you what. I'm gonna get to the issue before the issue.
Okay.
All right. And I'm gonna be a bit petty. I'm gonna preface this by saying I'm gonna be petty right now.
There we go. Yeah.
If you got 500,000 subscribers, when you record a song, I need that audio quality to be a little sharper, fam. I'm sorry.
What does that have to do with it?
Yeah, I need that audio quality to be right, brother. You know what I'm saying? I told you I was gonna be petty.
Your mix down got to be correct.
Yeah, the mix. Come on, man. The mix got to be right,
correct.
Bro.
The treble got to be right.
Man. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying?
That snare's not as crisp.
We MCs, bro. You know what it is, man. Come on, man. I'm saying, like, if you can do that. If you want a budget, I understand. You know what I'm saying? But if you got 500,000 subscribers, I mean, come on, dog.
Wow.
Come on, man. I'm gonna need that sound quality to come up, my dude. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
I'm not even commenting on this. I'm just saying, come on, man.
What you can do that. Adam is spicy today, y'all. Wow.
Out the gate.
But listen, man. Just so you can see what the man said. Let me give my disclaimer. Religion's allegorical, and what I mean religion is fictional, and the characters are allegorical, okay, and symbolic to other, people playing things, specifically things that contrast with astrology. So I don't. So he's saying that people in the Bible, these characters are fictional. So that means people like, I guess, Taharka, who flourished in the 7th century BCE, fourth king, reigned from 690 to 664 BCE of the 25th dynasty of ancient Egypt, who's mentioned in 2 Kings 19:9 and Isaiah 73:9. He's fictional, right? To my great Kemetic friends. So remember, he's mentioned. I mean, everybody in the Bible is allegorical. So Pharaoh Taharka is allegorical, right? What about Epirus? Hebrew Hophra died in 567 BCE. Fourth king reigned 589 to 570 BCE of the 26th dynasty is mentioned in Jeremiah 44:30. He's allegorical too. You see, they don't think, man. It's like, and these are your people. These are the people that you love.
But this is why this is important, because often, and it's not just him, but often when these guys make arguments, they don't really think it through to where they don't realize that it's actually a double-edged sword. They actually end up cutting against their own heritage or perspective, and they're so thirsty to try to take daggers at the Bible or Christianity. They end up making these arguments that say, okay, well, if you want to take that to its logical conclusion, all right, cool. So now you got to take away some of your own history just to spite Christianity. You know what I mean? People, they do that all the time, man, all the time.
And it's funny, I do this to these guys when in the Facebook debate groups, every time they come with the Ray, it's always the Ray Higgins video.
Yeah.
They love to play that Ray Higgins video. And it's like, you see, everybody is just, characters. And I'll give $5,000 if you can show me one person that actually exists in the Bible. And I'm like, I have a whole list of pharaohs. What's up?
Right.
What's up?
What we trying to do right now? What we trying to do?
PayPal right now. Here's the link. What's up? You know what I mean? So
have they hit you up on that PayPal though?
No, of course not.
Please.
So let's continue with Mr. Almost CPAC.
Sorry. You get spicy there too, bro.
It's your fault, man. Bad company corrupts good character. All right, here we go. Actually, hold up.
Oh man.
Wait, hold up. I don't think I put the audio. All right, hold up. All right, here we go.
You good.
All right. All right, cool. Here we go.
You know, be giving props to the devil and shit like that. Please don't come on here being a religious, fool. But for people who actually think that religion is, actual fact and these things actually took place in history, then this video right here is going to be specifically, prescribed to you, because I have to give you the wicked psychological foundation of the God that you subscribe to. And so that being said, right now, also at the end of this video, I'm going to be giving a different perspective on how the Eve, the story of Eve cursing the world allegedly, all right, has given a pass and a green light to the entire world to subconsciously view females and feminine energy as their enemy.
Let me say something about that real quick.
Tell a story to.
Just real quick now, because he just said something that's going to pretty much undergird the majority of what he says later on. He says, I'm going to give a different perspective on, this Adam and Eve, blah, 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 blah. Now, that's code for I'm going to make something up. You know what I'm saying? and then you're going to have to follow me after that. Now, let me introduce a concept here. Actually, I'm going to give a shout out to my man, Leroy Hill, that kind of put me on this. But there's a concept called the planted axiom. Okay, the planted axiom. Now, the planted axiom, if I understand it correctly, is that if you and I are having a discussion, let's say we're at odds about something, is if I can get you to accept this statement here that I make, right? If I can get you to accept that, then I've already got you, because the rest of what I say is going to flow from that one statement. You know what I'm saying? So basically, I'm going to try to plant that in the beginning and get you to concede a particular point. And then and once I got you on that point, I already know whichever way the conversations goes, I can kind of puppeteer you wherever I want to go. Like once you accept my first proposition, everything else is going to follow from it. So you have to be careful when people try to use that concept of the planted axiom to insert something false into the conversation, right? So what we've got here, he's like, okay, I'm going to give you my own interpretation. Right? I'm going to give you an alternative perspective. Now, first of all, with any form of communication, it's of the utmost importance to get the intent of the writer or speaker, right? I'm saying, if you say, yo, I think that Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, and then I say, well, I interpret you to mean LeBron James is the greatest of all time. So it's like, well, no, that's not what I said. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give you an alternative perspective on what you said. Well, that's not what I said. Right. Now, if you want to hold that view, then on your own grounds, you can do that. But you can't take what I said, make it something else, you know what I'm saying, and then make a case on that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the essence of a straw man argument, right? Is misconstruing what somebody said. So you got to be careful, when people try to insert some, early on. So once you say, I'm going to give you my perspective, now you've already told me, then you're not interested in what the text is actually trying to convey, right? And therefore, you're not really interested in making a case against the belief system that you claim to be critiquing, because you've already said at the outset that you're just going to give your own interpretation, right? Now, if you really want to critique Christianity, if you really want to show that it's false, then what you need to do is take, what the text is actually saying, and then try to from there demonstrate that this or that is problematic. That's what you need to do. Right. But, now here's the thing. If we just kind of let him slide on that, but like, all right, he's going to give us his own interpretation. Well, now he's in the driver's seat. He can say whatever he wants at that point, because we've already given him the floor, if you will, to interpret however he wants. You know what I'm saying?
Because that kind of, the planted axiom actually gives birth to having the hearer fall into the fallacy of composition, right? Because it's Well, if this part of what I'm composing is correct, everything I say here on out will also be correct. So I'm baiting you with this planted axiom so that you, the hearer, can commit the fallacy, not me, but you commit the fallacy, right? So,
well, and actually, and this is not a jab, but just so people can be on the lookout for it. Sometimes people would use that concept, like I'm thinking about Umar Johnson, for example. You know what I'm saying? He might say something like, you know, COINTELPRO was used in the 70s, the 60s, 70s to bust up, you know, civil rights activism. Right. That is true.
100%.
That is absolutely true. But then he'll go on, and I'm thinking about a specific interview where he started talking about how, and I'm gonna forget the acronym, but it was the faith-based initiative, right? He had this whole thing where he basically talked about how churches are become agents to the government because of the faith-based initiative, because if you take money from the government to do your faith-based stuff, now you got to abide by their rules, basically. And so he has this whole contrived thing, and then he ends up by saying, and that's why your pastor is the new FBI agent. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, the conclusion that he got to is in no way tucked into reality, but he started off with something that sounded reasonable. You know what I mean? So you got to be careful when somebody throws something in there, man, at the outset. You know, you got to follow them all along the way of the argument. You know what I'm saying? And don't give people ground that they haven't merited.
Yes, sir. That's good. That's good. That's a good look out for the party people to watch as he continues with this interesting breakdown of his, to say the least.
A world spiritually that the world is in sin and evil exists because a woman not only went against the God or her God, but went against her man and convinced man to go against God. And ultimately, this not only got them kicked out of the favor of God, but also caused God to, cause demise on the entire world. Then this makes you blame women subconsciously for all of the evils that exist in the world. And so we're going to give you a flip point of view, okay, to the Adam and Eve story, but also how the devil is actually and potentially, along with Eve, more moral than God. And so let's go into the alternate perspective. Here we go. So they tell you, right, that God gave everybody free will. And they tell you that, you do what you want to do. No, you didn't. Technically, Lucifer and Eve gave you free will. And I'm going to tell you how, right? There was 2 trees in the Garden of Eden. One was the tree of life. One was the tree of knowledge, or the difference between good and evil, whatever you want to call it. And so that being said, God told Adam and Eve not to eat from either one of these trees. And he told Adam and Eve that if they ate from the tree of knowledge, they would surely die. Not only was that a lie, let me rewind for a second and prove my previous point. You said God gave you free will. But if you, weren't allowed to eat from the tree of life, then you weren't allowed to determine how long your lifespan was. If you weren't allowed to eat from the tree of knowledge / good or evil, right, or good or bad, then you weren't allowed to use discernment, which was differentiate, the potential expressions of either good or evil. You weren't able to tell or know the difference between the two. And so if you didn't know the difference between right or wrong, you didn't know.
Pause it right there, real quick.
Yeah, I was going to do that anyway. Yeah.
Oh no, you want to jump in first?
No, you jump in.
Okay, cool. So a couple things here. So this is why it's so important to, what we're doing right here. We want to educate and, dig into some deep stuff. We do these deep dives for a reason. Okay. Now, one of the things you're going to see, and that we are seeing actually already in this video, is his whole commentary lacks conceptual clarity. Okay. Throughout the video, there's different concepts that he's kind of mixing and matching and just real sloppy with it. And you have to understand that some of the concepts that he's taken for granted, he clearly doesn't realize that theologians and philosophers, let's take theologians out of the picture, just philosophers have hashed over these things for centuries and treat them in ways that are far more precise than he seems to be aware of. And because he's not aware of it, he's making assumptions about things that he thinks to be contradictory that really aren't contradictory. So, for example, let me bring up my screen for a second. Let me see. Let me bring up my screen. I had to make sure it was on the right thingamajig. Okay.
CMB says this line of thinking what happens when you miss Sunday school and you get your notes from someone who wasn't paying attention.
Oh, step. Oh, can y'all see that?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, well, let me say this too. There's a couple of things I wanted to say. I mean, I recognize that we have different, communities that they're going to watch the live stream. There are certain apologetics issues that really do more overtly tie to our theological leanings than others. Okay. One of those would be like this issue of free will, right? Because you have some who maybe of a Reformed tradition, for example, who would just argue that, we don't have free will as people typically understand it. You know what I'm saying? Now, by free will, different people mean different things by that, but nevertheless, I wanted to kind of give two sides of the game so that we can see that whether you hold to a position of, we do have some sort of free will, or you hold to a more Calvinistic, paradigm, in either case, the claims that, Young Pharaoh making here are easily debunkable. Okay. So, when I'm talking about free will, he says, he kind of he has this overly simplistic, definition of, do what you want to do. Right now, again, when you're dealing with real thinkers, I'm saying, regardless of their theological tradition or their philosophical leanings, the notion of free will just kind of boils down, do what you want to do is like super simplistic. I'm saying, and people treat it with much more precision than that. So if you're somebody who is not maybe of, the Calvinistic tradition, right, and you may subscribe to what would be referred to as libertarian free will, or somebody might say limited libertarian free will. And that's kind of, what many consider to be like the commonsensical understanding of free will. Is I could have the capacity to do different things, what I'm saying, of my own choosing, if you will. Now, there's different views as to what libertarian free will is, right? Some would say that it has to do with you being the causal agent, I'm saying, or like, in other words, you are, when it comes to what you do or don't do, the buck stops with you. You're the one who's deciding what you do or don't do. That's one way to put it. Other people would say that it's maybe not necessarily that, or at least not that alone, but it also has to do with what we can call the principle of alternative possibilities. And this is philosophical language, right? But the principle of alternative possibilities means that things are in reality the way that they are, but they could have been otherwise, right? So if I pick up this phone right here, right, I could have chosen to not pick up that phone, right? Yeah, it was a real possibility prior to me picking it up that I could choose to either pick it up or not pick it up. So we're talking about there's a principle of alternative possibilities. So those who subscribe to the view of what's called libertarian free will, they might be in either camp in terms of which one of those two concepts, whether it be a causal, you being like kind of the person who's really bringing change about, or is the first is the prime agent of what you do or don't do, or the principle of alternative possibilities. There's those two ideas, one or the other is going to constitute or really kind of undergird what it means to have libertarian free will. All right. Compatibilism. Let's say that you are a Calvinist, right? But you subscribe to compatibilism, which my understanding is that, I think most Calvinists today do. I could be wrong about that, but I think the majority probably would consider themselves to be compatibilists. Now, a compatibilist would say that it is the case that God is sovereign in such a sense that there's nothing that you do that is outside of his sovereign, will, you know what I mean? Nevertheless, even though everything is determined in that sense, I'm saying, like, there's nothing that happens that wasn't determined by God beforehand. Let me put it that way. Even though that's the case, it's also the case that we have the faculty, the ability to act upon our own choices. I'm saying, like, we make choices based upon our greatest desire. Sometimes people put it that way. Okay. So compatibilists will, it's kind of like a quick definition of compatibilism. Sometimes people refer to it as self-determinism. Now, here's why I bring this up. According to Young Pharaoh, you have this notion of free will. It's like, you do what you want to do. That's his definition. Well, according to that definition, whether you subscribe to libertarian free will or limited libertarian free will or compatibilism, you're saying if you're on that side of the house, either way, it's still the case that you're doing what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? You could, if you're a libertarian, then you would have, you're a causal agent, or there's different things that could be the case, but they're different because you chose for them to be different. If you're a compatibilist, you're still acting upon your wants. You know what I'm saying? Now they're going to say, the compatibilists would say that the deeper story behind those wants is that they were, predetermined, but nevertheless, you're doing what you wanted to do. So in terms of his strict definition, or a slim definition, as to say, in either case, he hasn't posed a problem. You know what I'm saying, to either Christian, if you will, or Christian holds either view. He hasn't posed a problem because they're still doing what they want to do. You know what I mean? And even when you put in parameters, and I don't want to be too long with it, I have another point on this, but even when you put in parameters, meaning if you have rules, and that's a whole separate point, you still haven't removed the capacity. All right. If free will is a capacity, your ability to do something, you haven't removed the capacity to exercise free will, even if there are rules, put in place. I'm saying, even if there's some limitation of freedom, and I'll get into that in a second, but you still haven't, eliminated the capacity that one has to exercise the free will. I had another point, but I want to be, but I know I was talking a lot, so I want to make sure I'm not, over talking.
No, that's cool. I appreciate that. So, all right, let me share. Right. So, again, Mr. Pharaoh says that he told Adam and Eve that if they ate from the tree of knowledge, they would surely die. Not only that, wow, that's terrible. And this is the transcript. What was that? Not only was that a lie, you said God gave you free will, but if you, weren't allowed to eat from the tree of life, you weren't allowed to determine how long your lifespan was. If you weren't allowed to eat from the tree of knowledge, good or evil, right or good or bad, then you weren't allowed to use discernment, which was to differentiate, the potential expressions of either good or evil. You weren't able to tell or know the difference between the two, so that you didn't know the difference between right and wrong. Wow, the transcript, that's amazing. So anyway, so let's look at the scripture, right? So he's saying that this idea that Adam and Eve, if they rebel, that they would die. He's saying that this is not the case, right? Mm-hmm. But in Genesis 3, starting in verse 22, it says, "And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he has been taken." Mm-hmm. So he's saying here that as long as he's here and can eat from the other tree, he will live forever. So that's why we have to get rid of him.
You got to go.
You got to go. Now he's going to die. The assumption was if he did this, it was going to be an automatic death.
Right.
But it never says that in the text.
Never says it.
Right. But anyway, and then he speaks about discernment.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny, by the way. Just kind of using some Christianese, you know what I mean? But anyway, borrow some language here. But
right, which is the discrimination, acuteness of judgment, and understanding. Right. So he's making this claim as if God didn't want Adam and Eve to have the ability to discern. Well, Michael Heiser, in his book, The Unseen Realm, says about this particular subject, despite the risk of evil, free will is a wonderful gift. God's decision was a loving one. Understanding that requires only a consideration of the two alternatives, not having life at all and being a mindless robot, capable only of obeying commands and responding to programming. If our decisions were all coerced, how authentic would those, quote, decisions actually be? If love is coerced or programmed, is it really love? Is any such decision really a genuine decision at all? It isn't. For a decision to be real, it must be made against an alternative that could be chosen. So this idea that somehow God lied about giving these individuals free will, then why does he give them a choice? Because without a choice, there is no free will, regardless of how you define free will to be. There needs to be an alternative, and God provides that with this tree. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So actually, you know what?
Oh, yeah.
No. I'll stop now. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say real quick too, because again, so let's say I'm gonna play Calvinist advocate. I'm saying let's say I wanted to deny that we do in fact have free will. You know what I'm saying, in the sense that Heiser would say. You know what I'm saying? Right. I'm just trying to cover all bases. Let's say that I'm a Calvinist and I'm still want to defend against Young Pharaoh's statement. The reality is actually Young Pharaoh would have to go further than he does in this video to demonstrate that there was actually something problematic. I'm saying, even if you have a non-free will paradigm, I'm saying, so for example, and again, this is where philosophy comes into it. So let's say I could always argue that even in the absence of free will, God orchestrates a situation for an ultimate good. I'm saying, like, you know, and so, and there's no possible way that you have enough knowledge about the way that things play out, whether it be in the garden or anything thereafter. There's no possible way that you could know that all these things aren't, you know, working toward an ultimate good that, on balance, I'm saying, actually makes God's actions justified, right? We're just not in, we can call it an epistemic position. We're not in a position of knowledge to affirmatively say that God doesn't have reasons for the things that he does, right? So even if it is the case that, you know, let's say there wasn't some sort of free will, Young Pharaoh's argument still falls short, because he would have to go further than just showing that there wasn't free will or something like that. He would have to go further to show that God has done something evil. I'm saying, right, in order for him to do that, he would have to show, okay, well, here's going to be the outcome of all of this. I'm saying, from the garden to the rest of human history on into the eternal future, here's going to be all the outcomes, and this is why it doesn't pan out, you know what I'm saying, to an ultimate good. And there's just nobody that's in a we can call it an epistemic position. And by epistemic, I mean, you know, our frame of knowledge. I'm saying there's nobody that's in a position where they can affirmatively say that. So he's just set up a case that he just can't prove.
Right. So, absolutely. So to continue, make sure everything's okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So, because remember his well, let me just read it. It says, actually, you know what? This is okay. Yeah. Boom. All right. So in Genesis 2:9, the Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Again, in Unseen Realm, it says here, Eve is being told that if she violates God's command, she and Adam will become as Elohim, knowing good and evil. Notice that the phrase is knowing good and evil, not will be capable of good and evil. As free will beings, Adam and Eve were already capable of disobedience. Mm-hmm. Like God's holy ones in council, they were imperfect, but Adam and Eve had not yet experienced evil, either by their own commission or as bystanders. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's big. So the issue isn't knowing good and evil. Why do I say that? Why are you saying that's not the issue? Because Young Pharaoh is saying that God did not want him to know good and evil. That's not the case. And this is why. Right. All right, we're going to look at a couple scriptures. We're going to build a case for why that is not the case. Okay. So in Deuteronomy 1, Adam, you want to say anything before I go into this? Or
no, man, I'm going to ride with you. Yeah.
All right. Deuteronomy 1, verse 39 says, and the little ones that you said will be taken captive, your children who do not yet know good from bad, they will enter the land. I will give it to them, and they will take possession of it. In 1 Kings, starting in chapter 3 and verse 7, now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart, discernment, to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of ours? So here, the king says he doesn't understand because he's young. He's too young to understand the difference between right and wrong. Isaiah 7, starting in verse 15. He will be eating curds and honey when he knows enough to reject wrong and choose the right. For before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste. You see a pattern here so far?
Yeah.
It's kids don't know the difference. Mm-hmm. But not that they're not going to know. It's just they don't know yet.
Right.
So this is a quote from the Bible Project podcast talking about the tree of knowing good and bad. He says here, so the tree represents a choice. Will they live with God, allowing him to know, define Tov and Ra, which is the Hebrew words for good and bad that's being used here? Presumably, they need this knowledge as they mature. But the question is, who will teach it to them? Will they learn from watching God's knowledge at work? Adam and Eve are portrayed as children. The tree of knowing Tov and Ra represents two options or modes for how to know and experience Tov and Ra. Will they take this knowledge for themselves so that they will become like Elohim, knowing what is Tov and Ra? Or instead, will they allow God to teach them wisdom? The gift of God to the man and woman became the means of the downfall. Instead of waiting for God to teach them, knowing good and bad, they chose to take it for themselves. And that's what the Nakash, the serpent, was doing with Adam and Eve. The issue isn't knowing good and bad. He knew that eventually they would know Tov and Ra. But I want to show you a shortcut.
Well, and actually, you was about to say something else, or?
No, I mean, which is the same. Well, no, I'll save it for later. Forget.
But no, just real quick. I mean, that's consistent with what we understand about being made in the image of God, right? An aspect in terms of how we're supposed to function as the image of God is that we ought to subdue the earth. I'm saying we're supposed to reign in such a way that reflects God and his nature. Well, that means that we have to reign righteously. You know what I'm saying? That's what God wants us to do. You know what I mean? And so being knowledgeable about what that looks like, in the most robust way possible, and then having dominion over, evil in that sense. I'm saying by refraining from it. Yeah, of course, that's a part of what God intended for man, But to your point, is that God didn't want us to do that on our own. It's just like I got a car outside. If I had a teenager and they say, hey, can I take the car to the store? All right, cool. Yeah, you got your driver's license, go ahead and do it. If my 2-year-old says, hey, can I take the car to the store? Nah, I'm not gonna give them the keys. Right? Because they don't know what they're doing. Right? It doesn't mean that they'll never know it. And if I say no, it doesn't mean I'm saying never. I'm just saying you in your current state don't have the capacity to drive this vehicle. Right. And therefore, you're not going to drive it. I mean, it's really that simple.
But notice how the Nakash, the Satan, he runs the same play with Jesus at the desert, right? Because Jesus knows that in order for him to fully be, known throughout the universe as a King of Kings, Lord of Lords, he got to get to the cross.
Right.
Saints like, well, you don't have to die. Who said that? Listen, you know that I own the earth and everything in it. You just take a knee, and it's yours.
Right.
Again, it's shortcut to getting what you want.
Yeah.
What he wants isn't bad. It's actually amazing. It's great. It's how you go about getting it.
Right.
And that's what Satan loves to do with all of us, including the Messiah. He actually tried it with the Messiah. It's like, I'm going to have you take these things like good career, finding a good spouse, as my man Chris says, human flourishing, right? These are all good things, but how you obtain them, though, might not be. And this is where Satan comes for us.
Right.
If I could do a little
I mean, I was on with what's his name? Alex McElroy about a week or so ago. We were talking about the Word of Faith movement, right? I do believe that God desires good things for his people. I mean, I think that's certainly true throughout Genesis to Revelation. And we can see where God stands in relation to his creation. He wants us to flourish and all these kind of things. But if you're going to twist the scriptures and try to usurp power from God and you just want to declare this and do that and so on and so forth, basically take power out of God's hands and force his hand to give you all these blessings, that's not the way to go about it. You know what I'm saying? That's not the biblical way to go about it anyway. And you end up, destroying yourself by making other things idols and trying to, attain them on your own rather than saying, hey, what is God's program for my life? And how do I line up with that? You're trying to build your own kingdom. And really, that's what the enemy's all about. He wants you to try to, get out of your lane. You know what I mean? No matter what area of your life that applies to. So yeah. Quick
thing here. I don't know how to say your name, but it says, the more I learn about quote unquote God and the cat nailed to the twig, I walked away. There was no good, only evil, which is interesting because how do you know what evil is?
Yeah.
That's interesting that you recognize evil. So what is that? How do you recognize evil? Where does that come from?
Something you should ask.
Yeah.
So there was no good. I'm not even sure how you determine that basis, but I think it's pronounced "it be your own people." I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, so I would argue that evil. And I think we talked about this before. I don't think the evil exists in and of itself. I mean, in the same sense that coldness doesn't exist in and of itself. Coldness is the absence of heat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it exists as a privation. You know what I'm saying? It put it that way. Darkness doesn't exist absent. In and of itself. It's the absence of light. So I would say in the same sense, you can't really make sense of what evil is without having some conception about what good is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and you would have to, anyway, yeah, well, I don't know how much you're going to spend on that.
No, I just want to throw that out there real quick.
Yeah, but that's good though. Good, yeah.
But so I got another quick clip from our good friend.
Yeah, I got a couple more bars too. So yeah, we good. We're doing good on time, man. That's what's up. We doing good.
All right, here we go.
Knowledge, and that they are now intelligent beings who can think for themselves. And God cast them out of the Garden of Eden, and he blames Eve, for this circumstance. And he not only curses her with what we call the menstruational cycle today. And if you go look up the definition of curse and you continue to look down the definitions, one of them is menstruation. And so even today in the definition of in the definitions of the vocabulary term known as curse in the dictionary, menstruation is still associated with this term. And so with that being said, even today, the world, associates curses, particularly evil, with being a punishment placed upon women in synchronicity with, their menstruational cycle. And so Eve empowered her man. God found out, kicked them both out of the garden. And so now why is this important? The devil is the one who actually told the truth. God is the one who actually told a lie. And so if it wasn't for Lucifer and Eve, if it wasn't for Lucifer actually telling Eve the truth and Eve actually listening to Lucifer and becoming into enlightenment, you wouldn't have free will today.
All right. So we need to thank Lucifer for giving us free will.
Right. I mean, this dude, man. I mean, so there's a couple of things I wanted to kind of backtrack. I think it's going to lead me back to this point here, if that's cool. I'm going to just share my screen. So again, what we're seeing from the brother is the absence of conceptual clarity, and then what it does is it muddies the waters of his conclusions later on down the road. So, you kind of going back for a second, he's conflating free will with freedom. I'm saying those are two conceptually different ideas. I'm saying we're talking about freedom. We're talking about, as we're here, like, kind of rough definition, an individual's capacity or the faculty to choose or to be a causal agent, determining, alternative possibilities. That's what we're talking about with free will. You have this capacity, this ability to exercise your will. You know what I'm saying? Versus freedom, you're talking about the absence or necessity or coercion, I guess Webster's dictionary, or constraint in choice or action. So he's basically saying that because a limitation was put on what they could or couldn't do, therefore they didn't have free will. But he's muddying the waters between freedom and free will, right? So the fact of the matter is the presence of rules doesn't in any way negate the actuality of free will. You know what I'm saying? If anything, it may constrain your will, but it doesn't mean that you can't, that you don't have free will, right? You have that capacity. So for example, let's say if you're, football season's over. Let's say that, let's say we're playing basketball. Let's say you're in the NBA, right? And, I'm trying to defend LeBron James. I'm trying to stop him from scoring. Okay. I want to stop him from scoring. Now, there's a bunch of different things that I can do to stop him from scoring. I can stay between him and the basket. I can try to block the shot. I can try to get a steal. But what I can't do, is punch him in the face and take the ball. Now, I could physically do it, right? But it's against the rules, and I'm going to be penalized. Now, just because there's a rule in place that would prohibit me from doing it, that doesn't mean that I don't have the physical ability to punch LeBron and James in the face, right? It's just in light of the goal of the game. The goal of the game is to outscore the other team, and you can't do that if you're constantly being penalized because you get foul shots and so on and so forth. So it behooves me, if I don't want to give him some foul shots and then it might cost us the game, it behooves me then to follow the rules. Okay. Now here's the thing. There's a connection between the rules and the goals of the game, right? So number one, the rules aren't necessarily a negative in and of themselves. I'm saying, in so much as I can align myself with the rules and achieve the goals of the game, the rules can actually be a stepping stone. They can be helpful to me. And likewise, when it comes to morality, I'm saying if mankind is created in the image of God, right? If he's going to use the text, all right, let's give the right interpretation. If mankind is created in the image of God and intended to enjoy a full, robust, relationship with the God of creation, then the rules that are set in place are in place for the purpose of bringing about that ultimate goal. I'm saying, so by me following the rules, that's not a limitation to my free will. That's guidance in terms of how to properly use my free will. So limitations don't remove free will, and they're not necessarily, they don't even necessarily undermine free will. I'm saying, but they can be instructive in terms of how to properly use one's free will towards an ultimate aim.
And again, it shows choice, because you can either punch LeBron or not. But if there was no rule, then you could do whatever you want. So if you do whatever you want, how do you even know you have free will unless there's an alternative?
How could you?
So,
how could you?
Right. So,
and to be honest, I was kind of hesitant. I don't know if we want to take a deep dive here philosophically or not, but there's reasons to. I would argue the notion of God creating beings that were limitless in terms of their freedom would be like him creating a circle or a triangle with four sides. You know what I'm saying? I think it's actually logically impossible. I'm saying for God to create a being outside of himself that is limitless from a moral standpoint. I'm saying in terms of being able to do whatever they want to do.
A supreme being, so there can't be any being that's even at his level. So,
of course, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I mean, because we're all so. All right. I
we're doing Alvin Plantinga now. Is that what we're doing?
I mean, not necessarily. But all right. Let me just go here real quick. I promise I'll make it quick. You say
now? What we doing?
You said what?
Anselm of Canterbury. That's what we're doing.
Nah, well, actually, kind of a little bit. Actually, a little bit. So, I'm gonna just and actually, I get into this in the Urban Apologetics book, so people can check this out. But throwing some philosophical language in here, there's a difference between what's called necessary beings and contingent beings. Okay, and then real sloppy and quick, a necessary being would be an entity that exists by necessity of its own nature. Like in other words, the reason why it exists flows from itself. You know what I'm saying? And this, God is a necessary being, for example. By definition, he would have to be. A contingent being would be something that exists but owes its existence to something outside of itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this phone, for example, owes its existence to, the maker of the phone, right? So, it's a contingent entity, right? So here's the thing. It's impossible for God to create a necessary being. It's logically impossible, because if he created that being, it would owe its existence to him. You know what I'm saying? Right. And by definition, it could not be a necessary being. That's number one. Number two, God, I'll make this quick. God is the foundation of morality. You know what I'm saying? He himself is the very essence of what it means to be good. Now, I'm trying not to be super crude right here. But let's say if you're at the crib, right? All right. And I'll just put it this. Let's say you're at the crib, you're eating some food, and you're just sitting there by yourself watching the game, and you just like belch like super loud. But you're the only one at the crib, right? You gonna belch, and you gonna be like, "Dang, that was nasty," and you keep watching the game. You know what I'm saying? If your wife is sitting next to you, let's say your wife comes in, you're watching the game, and you let out a super belch, then you're gonna say, "Oh, excuse me," right? Because there's somebody else in the room, and that creates a dynamic. You know what I'm saying, in which it's appropriate now for you to say "excuse me," in reference to the other person. You know what I'm saying? Likewise, I'm saying if God exists in eternity past, right? He's the very essence of what it means to be good. But once he creates some sort of contingent being, if God's the foundation of good, if he's the very essence of what it means to be good, rather, whatever contingent beings he creates must now either align with that foundational good or not. I'm saying there now exists a dynamic. Once you have a contingent being, there now exists a dynamic within which evil can occur. You see what I'm saying? So with that being the case, regardless of how free that other contingent being is or not, there will always be, in some sense, a degree to which they can infringe upon the ultimate good. You see what I'm saying? And so there's going to be that limitation. So in that sense, it's actually impossible for any contingent being to exist without there being some sort of limit to the parameters of what they're free to do from a moral standpoint. With that being said, if that's true, then there's no reason to think that God has done anything wrong by instituting a particular rule that, that contingent being can't break, because no matter what, that there would always be some sort of rule, and there would always be some sort of moral, line that contingent being can't cross. So God hasn't done anything wrong, you know what I'm saying, or hasn't done anything that is injurious to their freedom by instituting a line.
At best, it's only a critique it's a stylistic critique at best.
Yeah,
like, I don't like how God did it. That's about as good as you get.
That's all you can say. That's all you can say. Right.
Right. So, but to answer Mr. Pharaoh's thing about blaming Eve, and it's because of what she's done, she gets this, this menstruation, and well, in Genesis 3:16, to the woman he said, I will greatly increase your labor pains. With pain, you will give birth to children. It was already a difficult enterprise. It's because of a rebellion that enterprise becomes more difficult. It was already difficult. So this idea that it was all, she was just popping babies out with no problem until this happened, that's not true. That's not in the Bible. Also, it's not like Adam doesn't get blamed, because in Genesis 3, verse 17, but to Adam he said, because you obeyed your wife and ate from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. The ground is cursed because of you. Because of you.
Because of you, bro.
Because of you, fam.
you, brother.
You, man. You the man.
Yeah, yo, I mean, seriously, bro. Can you imagine being Adam in that position? Where like the God of all creation is like, dog, it's because of you. I mean, how bad could he have felt at that point? Right.
Like, with Eve, right, there was some pain, right? But when it came to getting food from the land, there wasn't any pain until now.
Right.
Because in painful toil, you would eat of it.
But check this out, though. According to your boy Young Pharaoh, it was the menstruation period. That it was that I guess was caused by, what I'm saying, Eve messing up. But actually, the scripture is talking about labor pains. It's not even talking about just like the menstruation cycle in total.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like this right here is like, this should be like a D new alert right here. I mean, like we got to flash that D new bat symbol.
I know she got it real quick, break it down for us.
Right. I know she broke that down with in that previous video. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It says, you will eat of it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, but you will eat the grain of the field. By the sweat of your brow, you will eat food until you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you will return. Look at the ramifications of what he did, because of what you did.
Man. In other words, I'm going to give you the Adam Coleman version. In other words, the original Adam, that's why I'm waiting on this stimulus check right now. That's why I'm waiting on this stimmy, dog. You know what I'm saying? Because of that garden, B. You know
because of Adam, we have agricultural difficulties.
Yeah.
Right? Learning how to irrigate the land for the water to get into the soil, and all these different techniques, and wondering when the locust is going to come during this particular season. All that stuff because of what Adam did. He said the planet was cursed because of Adam.
Well, and I mean, I know I'm joking and stuff, but but that's deep. I mean, but at the same time, one thing I tell my kids all the time, I mean, actually, and I say it at the end of all my lives, but our job is to love God, love people, and take care of the things that God blesses us with. Stewardship of the earth is something that was entrusted to Adam. You know what I'm saying? And all that would come after him. So, in so much as he blew it, there were implications concerning his job, with stewardship. I'm saying it impacted his job. It's just like, let's say, for example, you're at your job and you're supposed to put in a certain number of reports at the end of every day, and you slacking. And then they're like, look, okay, well, instead of putting in reports once a day, you now have to put in reports 3 times a day. Like, so now your job is harder. Right. It's kind of like that. I mean, it's like you're messing up. And so now there's some additional things that you got to do. You know what I'm saying?
So in closing, what we've learned today is that.
Oh, are we close? Oh man, I had some more bars, man. Okay, but all right.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. So we know that people in the Bible actually existed.
Right.
God wasn't against Adam and Eve in knowing good and evil. It's when they needed to know. And that was Satan's trick. The trick wasn't because they were going to know. You see, that's the crazy thing. Satan knew eventually they would know because they were children. And as they grow and mature, they would know. But he provided a shortcut. He's been doing the shortcut thing with us since then.
Yeah.
And lastly, it wasn't just Eve's fault; it was Adam's fault as well. So
you gotta take that L, man. And like I said, we got to watch out for how people are using just throwing words around. I'm saying conceptual clarity really matters. I mean, because he even goes off the rails. He says some stuff about like they didn't know right from wrong, so they didn't know if they would fall off a cliff or not. Or something.
Right.
It's crazy stuff. And the reality is like, knowing the difference between cause and effect in terms of your physical self. I mean, you don't need to know the moral dimension of that in order to know that if I fall off the cliff, it's going to be a problem. You know what I mean? Right. So he starts mixing up stuff there. But even to your point, as far as, they didn't have free will because, they didn't know this, they didn't know that. I mean, they had sufficient knowledge. I mean, they knew that God said, don't eat of the tree. I mean, right. and when Eve was confronted, by the snake, she even said that, Jane. She's like, well, we're not supposed to do X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? So they knew enough, just because you don't have total knowledge. Like you may not have total ramification or total knowledge of all the ramifications of your decision, but you don't have to have total knowledge to have sufficient knowledge. You know what I'm saying? You can have knowledge that is sufficient enough for you to make a decision or not. You know what I mean? Speaking
to that, I remember as a kid, I was infatuated with the stove for some reason. Right. I was a little kid and I was near the stove. So one day my mom took me by my hand, and we had some potted plants by the window. Mm-hmm. And she said, if you put your hand or any of your body parts near the flame, we're going to have to put you in one of these potted plants. She didn't explain that I could be burnt to a crisp and die. All she said was, if you touch that, we're going to put you in this potted plant. To this day, bro, I'm super cautious when I'm near the stove. I kid you not. My wife be like, why are you so like, no, I don't want no problems. I'm just trying to, you know what I mean? It's like, it stayed in me.
You eat fast food from here on out. We're not cooking nothing.
But it was simple, but it resonated with me. Right. And I feel like that's what God was doing with them. They were kids. It's like, he didn't go into the repercussions and the moral implications. He said, listen, you eat this, you die.
Yeah. Right.
So
it was, they had sufficient knowledge. I mean, like if I say to my kids, don't go on the street, you know what I'm saying? Say the Mr. 3 hours. We've been doing good, man. We've been doing good, bro. We're doing good, man. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was a quick video. We touched on key points. I feel like, we did what we needed to do. So Mr. Coleman, what can we be expecting from you in the near future?
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, we got this book coming out, bro. So we really pushing that, man. I'm excited about it. Actually, tomorrow I got a couple things going. I'm going to be on Capturing Christianity on that channel. So y'all, hop over there and check my man Cameron Bertuzzi out. So we're going to be on there. But just I know there's going to be some more lives, kind of like the one that Eric Mason had with Jerome Gay. We're gonna be doing some lives like that, and April 6th is gonna be the big release. We're gonna be doing live. So I'm just. I
need you to be the plug, man. I try and get all these people on the channel so I can interview them, man. Like, put a good word in for me, man. I'm trying.
Oh yeah, I mean, bro. I mean, all I'm saying is this is just the beginning, bro. You know what I'm saying? We it's gonna be a whole lot cooking, man. It's gonna be a whole lot cooking.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Cool. And with that, guys. With that being said, it is Tru-ID Adam Coleman, BK Apologist. Catch you next time, because unfortunately there will be a next time, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be refuted. All right.
Yeah.
So with that, peace.